Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first IFIW, I guess, talk, discussion, debate. We're joined here by Lisa Sheehan. Me and Lisa were meant to meet many years ago. I was having an exhibition in London, and she nicely was going to come, and I got COVID. So unfortunately, she was there and I wasn't. So we've managed to meet each other on Zoom, and I've been following Lisa since she introduced herself to my work. And she's got a fascinating collection of work and a history of working in design and the creative industry. So hopefully this will be a big insight into what Lisa does and her journey and how she sort of molded the work that she makes today. And I know her past industry practice has, I reckon, has really informed the work that you did and why you did what you do now. And I think that's quite important. So I guess, Lisa, what would be quite nice, I'm just going to share my screen because it would be nice just to get something up in front of everybody. Um, Sorry, let's just start this. So, I guess it's an International Fashion Week, and Lisa works across all disciplines in fashion, design, and the creative sector, like a lot of artists and illustrators. So no one's really just tied down to fashion. So it was great to get Lisa involved, but I know she does some amazing fashion work. And just to give them a bit of context about you, Lisa, I kind of went on LinkedIn because LinkedIn seems to be the hub for everything at the moment. Um, Lisa's background, which is, I guess, the most prominent here, is working for the Financial Times. I guess what would be good, Lisa, is you could set the beginning start of working for the Financial Times and your movement through that space.
It depends how far you want to go back. I guess so. After uni, which obviously you went to the same university as me, I did a degree in illustration. And then when I came out, I found that it was too hard to get freelance work, so I decided to become a graphic designer, and not that I knew anything about it. And so one of my second jobs out of uni was at the FT, going in as an art director, well, as a junior designer, then senior designer. And then I picked my way through that, and obviously you can see there I stayed there for just under 20 years. In the end, being a art director, but it was quite boring, to be honest. And I used to commission a lot of covers, mainly CGI covers, 3D covers. And I got very annoyed with the fact I couldn't tweak them. So often you get a cover in and you think, oh, I like that, but if only it was slightly different. And you'd go back to the artist and ask them, but sometimes it just didn't, you just couldn't get what you wanted. So um, I think I then decided, well, if I learn the software, I can do it myself. It's that easy, which it's not that easy. So that's the kind of idea where it started, but that took a long time to get to there. I'd say probably in the last six years is when 7 years is when I really started to try to bring the covers in house. And so yeah, that kind of worked, and I really enjoyed doing that. Um, but yeah, it was mainly born out of the fact that I wanted to have more control over the covers, and the software that was used wasn't something I had, so I couldn't I couldn't start fiddling around with other people's work, basically.
Well, and because obviously I don't know, there's usually a set budget for covers, and does that budget just disappear and you get it, or did it just it's your job now, you are doing the covers, or how does that sort of side work?
So the magazine, I worked on about six magazines throughout my time, I think, at the FT, and they all the budgets varied widely. The main thing every year was we need to save money, was always the same thing. Can we spend less on budgets? So some of the covers had no budget, so we had to do them in-house, which was really good training. There was one called Investors Chronicle that was a weekly. So with that one, we did commission it, but did become very expensive doing that weekly. So I had the job of doing those covers every week. So that was good practice, and that was a typographical solution for a cover. So yeah, weekly on doing that. But then the banker, which was my main cover later on, was a monthly. They had a big budget for the covers, so we could spend. I mean, I'm talking. So I commissioned them every month, and say about 10 years ago or 8 years ago, I commissioned an artist called Chris LeBroy, who's also at Debut.
Yeah.
And that was £900. And we're talking like 9 years ago, and you can't even get that now. So yeah, the budgets were bigger in considering what it is now. But towards the end, it was a case of, yeah, we need to save money now. And I got made redundant from the FT during COVID because I was too expensive for the covers, and now they don't commission the cover at all. So
Mm.
yeah,
That's so. I I when you said that for the budget, I thought the budgets were around 3.5 grand.
no way.
I'm gobsmacked that they're so low.
They're so, I mean, I don't know if I can say on here what they are, but they do range. I
Yeah,
can,
but it's so
uh,
that's
they're
shocking, right? Because
pretty
in
cool.
an inside illustration, well, from my experience, when I've done the FT, and usually I get about 350 to 450 for an illustration just to go inside. So
Yeah.
I thought the cover would at least be
No,
4 to 5 times that.
no way, no. The cover, I mean, can I say so when I commission the covers, maybe I can do it because it's safer.
Yeah,
So when I left, if I commissioned a cover, it was around 750, seven hundred and fifty
right, okay.
pounds, which is kind of on the middle average of
Yeah.
UK covers.
Yeah, okay. So that's because it's good to know because a lot of people that sort of listen to what we present on these talks are young, up and coming professionals who don't know how to navigate prices. So it is quite handy because it isn't a secret. The reality is reality is the price, and we
Yeah.
all kind of navigate these prices. So I guess it really depends, but I know press is usually a little bit lower because you might get the exposure from it, and then get advertising work. So
Yes, that's how
that's
I
the
that's how
plan.
I see it. Yeah, that's how I see it. So if I get jobs for the Guardian, I mean that's not the best paid, but that's got me a lot of work. So
Yeah,
anything from the for the Guardian, I love their briefs. They're really fun and yeah, they I know it's almost like self-promotion really, but I'm getting paid a bit as well.
yeah,
So
yeah.
some jobs are like
That's how I saw it. I remember I did a drawing for the Guardian, and then they ended up getting me to design all the tents for Glastonbury. So
that.
you get these magical projects that sort of come from it. They sort of splinter projects, and you do something that could be 300 or 400 pounds, and then the next minute, oh, we've got 10 grand to do the tents. Huge, and it was huge, like illustrations and drawings all around the inside of all the tents. So, as you say, one thing leads to another, and it's great promotion, and it's kind of like fast and furious, which is quite nice. There's not too much
Yeah.
time to think, which is I guess good for you, but it's time sensitive. You have to be on it all the time and no time to like have a break. It's like, right, get it done, finished, and
Next
then recover.
Yeah, no, I find that at the moment I'm juggling normally about four different covers at once, and it's quite hard going. When I was at the FT, I was in charge of towards the end one magazine, like say the Banker, which was their biggest income stream. So I was on that magazine. It was a monthly, and I just did one cover a month. And now I'm kind of doing a juggling about three a week. So I can see why they got rid of me. I was a little bit expensive for what I was doing, but yeah, it's a big
I guess they're
shock.
paying for it now because they'll have to pay you. But
Yeah.
I guess it's great, and because when I see your stuff coming up, I'm like, this person's a machine.
I am a machine. I
You've
am. I
become
think
a
I am.
computer, and I'm like, how many covers? And it's great to do covers. If you imagine when you're a student and they say, oh, design a cover, and everyone thinks, yeah, yeah, and they spend a month designing one cover and they do three options. You're doing three a week, 3 to 4 a week. So,
Yeah.
you're a prime example. Kingston would love to probably speak to you and go, this is a person who's actually living what you're doing and doing it 3 to 4 times the amount that you're doing in a month, in a week. And that's the reality of it. And I think, it's great to see. And I'm seeing all this stuff coming out, which is nice. It's better to be busy. An illustrator that's not busy is the worst case scenario because you go semi crazy. So I think the best
Yeah.
thing you can be doing is staying busy. So, right. Um, I'm bringing up this one. The reason why is because this is, I guess, the main piece. Integrating fashion and food, and we're looking into food as well at the moment, like how illustrators, artists can, I guess, work with food makers as well. So I've been researching that because I've seen like John Booth working with hotels, like the Rosewood Hotel. So I think there is a real play between food and art and creativity, and I think it could be more. So when you did this piece, I was like, "Oh, this is exactly what I'm looking at," and I thought, and it's a really nice sort of combination of both things together and a different viewpoint. So anyway, you can explain this because I've got kind of this one and the other pieces.
Um,
What this was for.
yeah, so this was for Stylist magazine. So the idea wasn't mine. So a lot of the jobs I get now, sometimes I get the creative ability to come up with the idea, but this was given to me. So basically, they had tested how many, well, I don't know how many perfumes, but they wanted a vanilla kind of smell, if you like. And so they thought, oh, ice cream, and vanilla ice cream. So they wanted to turn the perfumes into ice cream. So they were all ice creams. So I was sent the perfumes, which was great. So I got a bit of a freebie on that one, and they're quite expensive too. And basically, I had to make them. So what you see here is I've made a replica of both these perfumes, and then turned them into food. And I took the packaging, so I had to take the to make a 3D thing of the actual object, and then take the packaging off, scan the packaging, take as much as I could off the packaging digitally, and then remake the type in Illustrator or Photoshop, and then put the packaging back on again, if you like,
Yeah.
but so that I could emboss it and indent it and all that sort of thing. So yeah, it was quite a tricky project because I had to get the actual bottles to make sure that I made them correctly because obviously the companies would be looking at these as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, and turn them into ice creams. So it was quite a challenge to do the ice cream texture in CG actually. But I
Yeah,
think it came
and you kind of got a real nice, there's sort of this weird blur to it as well. So like it looks like it's been scraped. I
yeah,
think it's really nice, and I can see other work that's may have splintered off from this, but this sort of reliefs and embossing into a material has been
yeah.
really. I love it because one thing, as a creative, you love embossing anything into paper, blind embossing, all of this sort of magic that happens without being so obvious. And I think these were this one particularly on the left is stunning, and I really love this. Yeah, so I guess these were stylist magazines. They really went well. And did anything more? Because I know we've spoke a few times, and you're kind of trying to sort of creep into fashion, and I think there's definitely a space for it. But have you had any sort of responses from this or return
Um,
from this?
yeah, everybody loves it. So when I get asked to do a job and there's a sheet of my reference material, these are often included. I've done what have I done since then? I do a lot of cakes, fake cakes, and they often look at these and bring up these as well. But I think, one of them actually, one of the perfumes you not got on here, the lady wanted that perfume company contacted me to do something. We haven't done it yet, but off the back of that, they wanted to do something. So I was hoping I might get a really big ad job from
Yeah,
one of the perfume, but I haven't, unfortunately. Maybe I
it
will
it
get
will
some.
come. It will come. You can see it. And I think even if it meant you doing some of the packaging, like mold making, could come
Mm.
from this. Like in my head, if I was looking at this from an art director one, is could we make packaging that has, because it's so easy to do. If they're making a mold of something, vacuum forming or whatever they're doing, this would look lovely. You know, if you took a bottle of Chanel out and there's like a mold left in there, it'd be so
Yeah.
nice. And I think they're almost, asset stripping of all these products that you want to keep. And this would be so nice to kind of see. So I love these. When I saw these, especially the first one, um, and then Stylist magazine, the cover. So I put these two covers together because one was sort of the ridiculous, I love this woman cutting into the grass. I was wondering if it was semi you.
Well, it wasn't, but after actually, I sent Jessica I worked with on this. I've got a picture of me on a quad bike up Mount Etna, and I thought, oh my God, it is just that's me. So yeah, it's me. Well, she was
And
supposed to be walking initially with a walking pushing
right.
one,
And
but
I guess you have to kind of and for example, how long would that cover option be for Stylist magazine? How long would you have?
so the stat normally stylist, I would they're ranging a couple of weeks maybe. But often I'm already on three jobs at the same time. So when someone gives me a job and I've got 2 weeks to do it, I don't have 2 weeks because I haven't got the whole time to do it.
Yeah.
But that one was particularly um, I love the way it came out and I love the job, but I hated while I was doing it. It was
Right.
it was I've got a very good machine that's very expensive that put a lot of money into last year so that I could do complex covers, but even my machine could not cope with it. Because if you look at that image, every leaf on there is a leaf, every single leaf.
Wow.
So you can zoom right in to the stylist word, everything, and you can see all the leaves individually. Because I couldn't find a better way that would show it realistically
Yeah.
because you've got the close-up area of all those leaves and then the far away, and no textures would work. So it had to be done so they were all
Bit
leaves,
by
which
bit. Oh my God.
which was the amount of polygons and whatnot on
Yeah.
there. It was just outrageous. So my machine would open and it would, like when you're years ago, you're trying to use Photoshop and you just
Just
can't move.
spinning.
Yeah, and it was just, oh my God. And then I said to them, you can't make any changes because I really can't move this thing anymore. I can't do anything with it. So it was a really tricky one. We got there in the end, but
Yeah. It's great.
yeah.
And I love it. And I think the next thing they probably would say is, could you animate it? And then you'd
Oh
run
yeah.
away.
Like nope.
That'd be the worst case scenario. And then on the other page, this sort of Telegraph magazine, which reminds me of something like for Time magazine, or is a little bit more, I guess, idea based. I love this cover, and when I see it, even the polystyrene looks so real, and I just thought this was a fascinating cover.
Yes,
How how
this
is
one's
it?
quite different because this is a mix. This is a mix of photography. So this is partly me, partly a photographer. So a photographer did take that photo straight down,
Right.
but then I had to kind of recreate it to be able to get the packaging looking like it's on it with the
Yeah.
label and
Yeah.
the masthead. So that was what I'm starting to do a lot of actually at the moment is working with photographers where I'll have to tweak then slightly they'll want a bit of packaging on that we can't just Photoshop it on because it's not got the right the shape to it.
Yeah.
One for the Sunday Times, I had to put a water coming out of a flower on a like one of those clown
Yeah.
flowers.
Yeah.
So I had to put the water in, and so yeah, so that's a mixture of me, of photography, and but it works quite well, the two working together.
Yeah, no, it's great, and the color riffs against each other, which is really nice. And I don't know, something draws you into this. I think it's an octopus, isn't it, or something? Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, it's quite ugly though, isn't it?
It's ugly, but there's something quite beautiful about it as well, which was great. And then kind of when I saw this Amiga ad, it reminds me of the sort of reliefing and embossing for the ice cream. So I guess a bit. Which came first, the ice cream or this?
This did.
Right, okay. So a bit of the knowledge was already there.
Yeah, and this again was just as bad as anything that's got grains in it or small elements is quite a nightmare to work with. So this has got a lot of grains of sand, and the the watch one, I had quite a lot of time for that, and I really like the idea. And obviously, in the back of my head, I was thinking, oh, I might get an ad job off the back of it from Amiga. You never know, so I'll make a good
Yeah,
job of it. But to do that, to imprint into something, I had to make the watch first. So it was a double job really. So there's actually a watch. Yeah, I've got a watch hanging about somewhere that's as in a 3D one. So I had to construct the watch completely so that I could then emboss it because I couldn't emboss it unless I had a real one to do it
yeah,
with.
yeah,
But at the same time, I couldn't emboss everything back to front. So if you see all the numbers are correct on
yeah.
there.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
So I had to make the watch with the numbers back to front sticking out and other bits back to front sticking out so that when I embossed it, the numbers would be the correct way around. So it was a little bit of it's a puzzle. They're all puzzles. That's what I
yeah.
find so fascinating with them. That yeah.
No, but that to me, and it's quite funny how we think as sort of creatives is, I'll do this, but what's the opportunity going to come from it?
Yeah.
You always in your mind, I hope something, a sculptural piece comes from it that's for the Amiga store, or
Yeah.
I'm going to get a big job for Rolex, and you never know when it's going to come. Something comes usually, but it could be 5 years down the line, and usually it's like you've changed direction, and then something crops up and says, "Oh, we saw this piece of work," and you're like, "That was 10 years ago." Like, what are you? Where are you getting this information from? So I love this one, and then obviously the Stone Roses looking cover, this Jackson Pollock-esque with the key, and it's great. You're also animating them as well because I think you're just adding that in for yourself.
Yeah. Sometimes I give it to them, but
Apa
Oh,
langsung langsung bersih.
sorry, I'm just trying to turn off someone's. Yeah, that's it. Okay,
so yeah,
back.
I animate them. Not when you say animate, it's more of a little walk around the scene
Yeah,
so that you can see it's 3D. Because a lot of times you might think that it's just in Photoshop. So I like to just zoom in and move around a little bit. And then the odd occasion, a magazine will say, "Oh, actually, can you animate it as well?" So it's good for them to see that I can do it, should they want it. But mainly I do it the night before it comes out for
yeah,
myself.
yeah. No, it's really nice, and I'm glad you do that because for me, I'm like it kind of well, there's two things that's come out. One, you've built it. Secondly, it's not AI generated, which I guess we could come into a little bit. Um, and there's the potential of filmmaking, animation that could come from this as a new stream of work. And I think from a creative point of view, like you were mentioning, all of us have to kind of go down this route of if I do this, what could become of it, or where else could it get used, or what's the new opportunities from it? And I think I can really see when you're doing stuff. I can see it in my mind what you're thinking. So you're kind of thinking as a creative and a professional, looking for new opportunities, which is good. Which is this was a I it's so simple but really nice. And I think I don't know if anyone speaks to you much about your work because you're probably in your room on a machine. Um,
I'm plugged in from my head to my machine 24
yeah,
hours a day.
just weaseling away like a proper creative, and it's and it's just kind of getting on with it and getting on with the job, as they'd say. And then also looking through what you do and typography. There's lots of typography, so I'm thinking back to Kingston. You'd have illustration and then you'd have graphics, and I think. I'd be curious to know what graphic designers are doing this and what illustrators are doing this because graphic designers, I think, because I went to the Kingston show last year and they're still almost like typesetters rather than what I would call as graphic image makers. So
Mm.
I think the illustrators are very versatile, and then they kind of move in this place. But this is a real space for graphic typography, image makers. Um, but I don't know if the graphic designers, from what I saw at Kingston, they're not really playing with this. They're playing more with just here's a book, here's some type. So I think the illustrators really push into this space, and all I can see is I'm guessing there's more fun in these jobs.
Yeah. Well, the never say never, that was something somebody kept saying to me all the time, and it really annoyed me. And I thought I've just got to make something out of that. And that's a personal project, that one. Um, but I quite like it when a brief is typographic because it does actually constrain you slightly. Sometimes you get a completely open brief and you're like, oh, I don't know what to do with this. But then when you get the type, you've got that set and you know what the subject matter is, and it often actually brings the project together a little easier. So I do find it a bit easier. And on the magazine at the FT, the Investors Chronicle, as I said, the headline, actually a lot of them, we used to use the headline as the image. So whatever the headline was, we would try and build the image around it. So I had 20 years of doing this sort of thing on a more of a 2D basis. So the ideas would come quite quickly. You get a descriptive words and you think, okay, that's going to be whatever that's going to be. I just find it's easier for me to come up with a concept around type as an
Yeah,
image. And there's more fun in it, I think, because I can make little things out of things, and it's quite nice. Like the little lipstick. I just like my little
yeah,
lipstick on that one.
yeah,
Um, and then getting the O's on the making the hundreds. So yeah, I find it clever. It's a bit more clever, and I like the concepts of it. So
yeah.
yeah,
Like you can see it when look at the type work, you can see there's a real playfulness, and I don't know if you how much you're looking at art at the moment, but there's a real movement to object making and this sort of experimenting because a lot of people are moving more into ceramics, jesmonites, all these sorts of materials, but they're making these sort of like unrealistic combinations of things. And I feel that we don't realize that some of this is a little bit of what is happening in art now as well. There's a real sort of movement of the ready-mades becoming almost quite illustrative. And
Mm.
so I'm seeing a shift. You're seeing a big shift happen. And you probably have never considered it, but this sort of movement of where you're going. If we went to an exhibition, how could we see some of this as a piece of art? And I think
Yeah.
we undervalue or underestimate some of the work that's being made. Because if you think of Never Say Never, and that was on a big gallery wall, huge, it would be amazing. And I obviously the cost to make it would be horrible, and the logistics, but as a piece of art,
It would
and sort of contemporary pop art, it really
Yeah.
works. And I think,
Yeah.
have you ever considered that?
Yeah, I always consider it as in, oh, I'd love to make that. With neon, I did a piece for Witch magazine quite early on, and I knew that if I built this thing, I knew that some of the people that would read it would go, oh, that wouldn't work, if it because that's what it was aimed at electricians and things like that. So I did actually look up on how you actually make wire it up properly and what transformers go where and whatever. So most of my neon that I make, I'm totally aware of how it should work and the way it would work. So you could just pass it to a neon maker and it would work. So I think at some point I would love to make one of these. I mean, it would cost a bit, yeah, but it would be cool, wouldn't it, to have your own
Yes.
custom built
It'd
thing.
be fantastic. And I think, we're seeing like Chris making a sculptural work now from his 3D works. So I think it will, I think for you, it will come.
Yeah, it's
It's
just the
just,
cost, really.
well, we just want someone else to pay for it.
Yeah,
And I think
exactly.
but once it's been made once, you kind of see it again, and we're seeing it with inflatables and all these other materials that people are tapping into. Um, so then kind of when I look at the work and the sort of progression, is this sort of more seductive typography. And I think the actual the 3D-ness is becoming more sophisticated. Just looking at what you're doing and where you're going to, I might not be right, but that's how I see it. Is the sophistication behind the 3D is as you're getting better at it, um, and me analyzing it, just looking at it from afar. And I can see now, even with the work that we're going to show in a little bit to come, with this Saatchi work, with the ands, because you made a whole series of ands.
Yes, for such yes, it's the and in Saatchi and Saatchi, yes.
Yeah,
So they kind of told me they were for departments actually. That's what it was for. So this one, the glass one, was for Saatchi and Saatchi overall. That was their one main one for. I think it's based in LA, so it's for the LA team.
right.
So that one was just for the overall Saatchi and Saatchi. But then you had one for the design team, and you had one for their parent company. What are they called? That's got me now. I knew my brain would go at some point. So yeah, the parent company was a lion, so they wanted the lion as ampersand,
I'm
and
trying to
one
think.
to
If that's not
represent.
Mal, is it? That's a bear. Mal. I think they have a bear.
No, no, it's not. It's a lion. It's a lion. I can't remember.
I can't remember.
It's very well known. I can't remember. Anyway, and then their main client was Toyota, so they wanted one that represented Toyota, strangely. Um, and what else was there? Oh, I did. Oh, and one was for the LA office, so it had to represent LA. Like surfing and
Yeah.
basketball and stuff. So yeah, that was a really fun project, and I really liked that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can see this, and then obviously you've got this other. I guess the sexy one is almost quick, fast, get on it and do it, and it kind of jumps out very quickly.
yeah, that was for Amazon Audible actually. They commissioned quite a few female artists to come up with. It had to be really quick, just a word to go with a part of their whatever they were talking about at the time. So there's quite a few of us that did it. We were just given the word, um, and it had to be almost like it was sexy, but a female and self-love, and so it had to be something just punchy in your face and a slight little animation with it. That was that. It was
Yeah,
good.
it was good. And then it's a more type of, as I said, these definitely would be great 3D pieces in galleries. I can see them. And then this sort of paper cutting typography-esque. I'm trying to remember the name of the paper typography man. You probably would mention him. I can't remember his name.
Um,
What's his name? The
I would
guy
have
who
done.
cuts out all
Yeah,
the.
yeah.
I saw him recently because he kind of became really big, and then he kind of sort of semi disappeared. And I always thought, is he going to laser cut them or? And he still cuts them by hand, and he made a huge amount of screen prints of these
Yeah.
paper cuts. But yeah, so I guess these are more. Was the angry one again for Audible?
No, yes, it was. Yeah.
So it's lovely, and I think if you ever get the courage, a big exhibition, you do six
Mhm.
words. You can fill debut art easy,
Yeah.
and
You
have
fill
the
it with
two.
a 2D one, but I can imagine putting that on the wall, flashing.
No, it'd be great. 3D, huge cutouts. I think it's possible. You could try making one letter and then see the cost, and then start crying. I don't know. I wouldn't have a clue how much. God,
I think the glass alone would cost a fortune, let alone the
yeah.
outside.
It's a real killer. And this basketball piece, was that for anyone or a job?
No, that was I made that absolutely ages ago now. I think I was even still at the FT when I made it. I used to give myself projects to learn the software because I taught myself the software. So to be able to learn the software, you need a project. And
Yeah,
I'm not very good at watching tutorials just for the sake of tutorials because you just don't really learn anything unless you've applied it to something that means something to you, I think. So
yeah,
instead of just going through YouTube tutorials. I thought, right, I'm going to make this. How do I make it? So that was a something to try and teach myself. Not the technique of the paper cutting. It was how do I wrap this thing round a ball more so because it's quite a tricky thing to put it and you've got to draw it and you've got to get it on and it look
Yeah.
correct.
And the sort of rubberized effect as well.
Yes.
There's all
And
of
the
these sort of,
indentations and there's so many textures going on that to
yeah, no,
amalgamate them all together was quite tricky.
it's great, and it still looks good now. Now when you
Yeah,
see it, it still looks great, and it's still got that sort of it. It doesn't look too fake, and I think that's still what's nice about it is it really you can imagine that rubberized feel, and I think that's the intricate details of 3D CGI or whatever. I don't know. What do they refer to it when they speak to you? How do they say? Because when I do portraits and people say, "Oh, you're a cartoonist," and I go, "I'm not a cartoonist."
yeah.
And they'll always say, I don't know what they say. Are they like, "Oh, you work for Pixar," or I don't know what do they call 3D people?
Um, CG artists,
CGIs, okay.
yeah,
Because
3D artists.
you never know what I get called anything. I'm like, I'm not any of these things. And like, oh, you'd be really good in Trafalgar Square. And I'm like, no, I wouldn't. And they come out with these crazy concepts, and you're like, where do you get this? So then, I guess this is quite recent, isn't it? The BFG.
Yes, this is hasn't come out yet. So as in it has come out the images, but they've only just announced the Royal Shakespeare are doing Roald Dahl's BFG. So it's very recent.
This I guess this is must have come from the Ands from Saatchi.
Well, there's one in between actually. So that there was the Saatchi first, and then Barron's magazine in the US got me to do. It was the 100 influential women about 2 years ago, and they wanted the 100 in the same glass. And then these guys saw the 100. I don't think they saw the ampersand.
Right. And it looks great. And I went through, and they're super happy with it. It's really sort of mythical and mystical and fun and creative, and I guess for you, and again, ice sculptures,
Yeah.
glass blowing. How
Oh, I want to do
nice!
that. I want to do that. Glass blowing. That's one thing I do want to do.
Yeah, because you're doing all this glass, and then you've got this sort of magical pearlescent feel to it. It would be, it'd be really nice to see how could they make these things and make them. I guess they might make them more out of plastic, which
Yeah,
is
maybe
not as
acrylic.
nice. Yeah, with acrylic, and then maybe spray it.
Yeah.
And I guess you're going to get to go and see the play and experience the magic of what you've created. And Roald Dahl, think of Roald Dahl, what a magical person to be involved with
Yeah. Yeah.
as
It
a
was
creative.
it was a great project. And the girl I worked with on it, she found me on Instagram. So that was great. Using social media to generate a few more jobs.
Have
Um,
you have so where do you find most of you like where do most people find you?
so it's probably a mix. I think WR, the website, obviously, the agency, a lot of the
Yeah.
work comes via them. A lot of my work is repeat customers. So, I mean, The Guardian, they're my own client. So they keep coming back. Which magazine? I kind of do probably one or two covers a month for them. They just started randomly because I'd been made redundant from the FT. And they thought, oh, she does money things. So I got Which Money, the first one from that, because I said about working at the FT. And then I'd get repeat ones from them. And then a few jobs like this one, the lady messaged me on Instagram, said, "Oh, I'd love to work with you. Can you let me know when we can have a chat?" So we did that. And a lot of art directors move around. So I'll start one of my first clients, like first ever 3D things, were for Women's Health magazine and Cosmopolitan. And then the art directors on there, Jessica, she tended to move a lot, so she ended up on. She's done You magazine, she's a Daily Mail, and where has she been? To the Telegraph. Now she's stylist, so my work comes from my connections with the art directors that move about.
Yeah,
Um,
which is handy, and keeping that relationship is really good. Being reliable, doing good work, all of them elements, and they foster that long-term relationship because they can't really make mistakes. You can never really let anybody down.
No, and they're on such
Um,
tight deadlines a lot of the time. I mean, some of their deadlines are really tight. And I think now I've realized it is hard to get into a new magazine because they're so stressed. Like on The Guardian, they're their deadline's
yeah,
very tight. They want to know they can send the brief out to someone that they trust and they know it's going to come back, with a few days to spare. Because a lot of the times I'm handing the final artwork back to them with a day to go. And
yeah,
that is quite stressful for them being on that side. When I was doing that, you'd get the email and you didn't want to open it because you'd be like, oh no, is it going to be what I want or not? So
yeah,
I think, they'll pick someone, work with them for a while, know they can trust them, and they know they can send it out and it'll come back and there won't be issues going forward. So it's
yeah.
good to get that relationship going.
Yeah, no, that I guess that's the most important. And then I chucked this in because I saw this and this seemed to me like fun time on acid.
Yeah, this is a good one. This one from The Guardian, actually. So this came via me doing the cheap ones for The Guardian. And then they've got Guardian Labs, which is their advertising arm.
Oh,
Uh,
lovely.
so that came from doing all the donkey work, if you like. And then I got the job to do this for the lottery, which was really fun, really fun.
Yeah,
Um,
these are great and it's a kind of a combination of sort of playful fun, e easy combined to some of the other work. Like that house one's not. Well, I guess they're all got their own. I love the gold boots. I could imagine, Nike potentially saying, "We want to do some new 100 goals by someone. We want some funky boots." So I can see lots of little potentials coming from everything. It's just,
yeah.
as you say, if people spot it or see it or um,
Mm,
there's so much stuff in. I
yeah.
thought this is great. This is
It
lovely
was
to
fun.
see.
And that hat, actually, so this is the second iteration of that hat. That hat was actually used on the Economist cover
Yes, I think I
before.
saw that. Did it have them many jewels on it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it was the front of the hat though, so it was slightly different. So the Economist had it first, but then they wanted it, so we did it for like that. And then I think just as I'd finished this project, another company in I think it was Dutch or Swedish something. They were doing a book cover on something or other that this fitted, and they said could they then relicense the Economist image for their book cover. So it's been yeah, it's been out there three times. So
That's the best case scenario. That's that's exactly what you want. And then Lisa, I know you're a busy lady, so I'm lucky to even grab 5 minutes of your time, let alone God knows how long we've been. But I think let me just see because and if anybody doesn't know, follow Lisa on Instagram. I think that's the best place, or sort of LinkedIn is a really good spot to kind of see what you're doing. And I think someone put something in the chat. Let's have a look. Did you draw it? I think someone wrote, "Did you draw it?" And then that's great. And Rob Ryan, there we go.
that's
Rob
it. Yeah,
Ryan.
that's it. And it's Rob something.
I was
Yeah.
trying. Well done, Helen. Rob Ryan was this sort of magical illustrator who was doing all these paper cuts. And I remember probably at uni, he was just sort of moving out, and then there was lots of screen printing going on. But
Yeah.
yeah, so. Lisa, firstly, thank you, and
Thank you.
it's a pleasure. And I know you were worried about Zoom and coming on Zoom, and you're used to working and running. They're your two main factors now.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
seeing that's when I follow you, and I'm like, right, she's either running in the morning, and then she's like working like a crazy person, doing
Yeah.
hundreds of covers. But thanks so much for your time and hopefully either I'll have another show or you'll have a show. We'll meet and capture each other in reality rather in the virtual world. Because
Yeah. Well, I keep trying to get Andrew to have a Christmas party or a summer party or some sort of party. So
Yeah, well, I think he has done meetups at the gallery a few times, but it's hard to get everybody to kind of commit. And I think I went to one many years ago, probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I went to one, so he's probably due one. And I knew he used to get bottles of champagne from Workbook. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, yeah. I think when I went there, he had all these bottles of champagne, and I think when you go in Workbook, they put your name on the champagne. So I think I was drinking someone's bottle of champagne. So God knows, but I don't know. And he had loads of the books, but he had loads of these drinks. I'm pretty sure that's what used to happen. I reckon that's totally not happening
God,
anymore.
yeah. I
That's
don't think you
definitely
get
not
anything.
happening. No.
No, nothing
But
like that anymore.
anyway, okay, so Lisa, thank you. And if anyone does have any questions, you could fire on them quickly before we lose her back to her computer. But overall, Lisa, we'll put this on YouTube and on channel, and we'll share it with you, and you can have a look, or maybe not look back. We always hate looking back at ourselves, but it's great, and it's good to see someone doing so well, and
Thank you.
seeing you working so much, and it's a great pleasure. So thank you, Lisa, and at least the sun's shining today.
Yes, although I do sit in a windowless pretty much room, but yeah.
Well, I can kind of see out there. There's a bit of sun, which is nice. But yeah, so have a lovely day, and I'll
And
speak to you
you.
soon. And keep in touch and keep up the great work. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.